We are thrilled to have Robert Kyncl here, the CEO of Warner Music Group, and a guy who has been transforming pretty much every corner of the media ecosystem over the last over 20 years. We met
Netflix.
at Netflix back at a senior management strategy retreat, thinking about what this streaming thing might look
That's
like.
Right.
But
we read your book. We all read your book at the offsite, and it stayed with us. Lots of lessons.
One of my co-authors is here.
Okay.
God bless you. It's available on Amazon, by the way. It's really not expensive. But let's go even farther back, because I'd say one thing that students are particularly focused on is career paths, and yours is pretty unusual, particularly for somebody in this biz. You started out undergrad just upstate from here in New Paltz doing international relations.
Yeah. Actually, I started out in Prague, in Czech Republic, doing physical education.
Physical education, you know.
And then I went to New Paltz. So it's even more unusual.
Yeah. Gym teachers don't have a great reputation here in terms of their intellectual capacity, but that's probably not fair.
And in Czech Republic.
Okay, that's true. In Czech Republic, on the other hand, it's top of the food chain. And then you went to international relations at New Paltz. So, and before you started your incredible run in this industry, you did a bunch of other things. So just talk about how you got from phys ed in Prague to international relations to fall in love with this sector.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with at New Paltz, I guess, doing international relations. So growing up in Czech Republic behind the Iron Curtain, so it's like a completely different socioeconomic and political backdrop from what you guys are used to, mostly, and in a closed society, basically. So for me, I was always interested in anything global, international, just kind of not being closed off into my own country. So that's why I studied it, and I wanted to work at the United Nations. By the time I graduated, I realized that nobody from the United Nations is here, but not a lot gets done over there. So it's a lot of meetings, a lot of talking, but not a lot gets done, and which is unfortunate. I'm sure there are some things to do, but I like to get more things done, and I ended up applying to business school, mainly to have student visa so I can stay in the country. and business school kind of seemed right to do, so I did that. And while I was in business school, I decided to, I was in LA at Pepperdine, and I decided to get a job in a talent agency, just entertainments all over LA, etc. So I started in the mailroom of a talent agency, copying scripts and then stapling headshots and resumes of actors together so that they would be mailed out to casting agents. And eventually became an assistant, and this journey took a while. I remember how much money I earned actually at that time, which was $325 per week, and before taxes. And so it was just, it was a very humble beginning, but I started to learn how, movies, TV shows come together. I eventually started to work for a company called Mutual Film Company, which was one of the early co-financiers of movies and TV shows with Universal Pictures and Paramount Pictures. So we took enormous financial risk in exchange for international rights, which we would then sell off. And through that, I learned how all movies are financed and how you value talent and how you insure it and all of that. So I basically learned the business of it. And then I went to work for HBO here in New York, HBO International, which was launching and managing HBO networks around the world. They happen to have 4 in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, Czech Republic, Poland, and Romania, which needed to be consolidated. We launched one in Korea and in India, and then there was also HBO Olé in Latin America. So that was now an international job. So I was kind of delivering on my United Nations aspirations. which was kind of cool. And then and this is right around the time when the internet revolution was happening, and HBO was at its height, and I got an offer to join a small, completely unknown internet startup, which was producing children's animated 5 to 6 minute episodes in Flash, which doesn't really exist anymore, thanks to Steve Jobs, and in a subscription model. This was year 2000. And so it was like so ahead of its time. There was no broadband; it was all narrowband, and it was a early stage startup. And I just took this incredible risk of leaving sort of this pristine company called HBO, which at that time had Sex and the City and Sopranos and like all the greatest and biggest shows. And I went to this startup, and it was the single best decision, because at that company I did a job of 4 people at HBO, basically, right? So even I got paid twice as much, right? So they still got a great deal because they got 50% discount because I did the job of 4 different people. But it was that exposure that I just learned how to do so many things, and you had to like get stuff done because it was much more about survival and raising money and generating revenue and solving problems. And then 3 years later, I left and joined Netflix. This was towards the end of 2003 when Netflix had about 500,000 subscribers. So it was small. It was in the DVD business, mailing DVDs to people. And so I joined as one of the folks dealing with the Hollywood studios. And again, we did the jobs of multiple people. We had to negotiate the deals. We had to predict demand, because when you're dealing with physical product, you can't overbuy because you're burning too much cash. But if you underbuy, then you're not serving the customers well. So predicting demand was very, very important. So we were demand predictors, we were negotiators, we were inventory managers, and we did all of our own legal work. And at that time, Reed was like, we had like 1 or 2 lawyers in the whole company. I was like, you guys can do it yourself. And so the theme of those 2 jobs was that I basically did the job of 4 people in each of those companies. And through that, you just become more well-rounded. You're not pigeonholed in one thing. And you think about things more comprehensively. So, and that was it. And then, 2 years later, we decided that we need to figure out this whole internet delivery thing, because at that time it wasn't streaming and it was downloading because the bandwidth was still files were too big, technology wasn't there. So I kind of raised my hand and said, okay, I'll do it. And so I started as first employee, and then eventually we built it up and then launched in January 2007, and then just kept on going, and it was like rocket ship. And then in 2010, I got recruited from Google to come to YouTube to help solve a whole bunch of problems related to a bunch of lawsuits by copyright holders over content uploaded to YouTube, and how to create a creator economy that now exists and eventually expand into subscription. So just I kind of swam in the river of media and technology this whole time, did the jobs of multiple people in each of the companies. And, it worked out.
It definitely did. Why don't we, just stepping back from those last 2 jobs, you're being quite modest. I mean, you were the point person and the responsible person for really taking 2 businesses that were already quite successful and fundamentally changing their business models or transforming the mix of their business models. Obviously, in the case of Netflix, that as we talked about, we were there when we met when it was just at the beginning of that.
Yeah.
And what I remember most vividly about that management retreat is that people were quite resistant because to making any kind of change. Everybody thought, well, it'll be the same thing, just online. Yeah. And of course, it's a completely different industry structure, and they really needed to change. So I left that day, and I thought to myself, these guys don't quite get how different the world will be competing in a world where you don't have huge physical infrastructure that nobody can duplicate. Mm-hmm. And then, though, again, I think people don't appreciate At YouTube, YouTube was, the leading user-generated advertising platform, but it is now the Goliath in a whole series of subscription businesses. Everybody else is a pimple, certainly in virtual MVPD, in a whole series of areas. Right. And you own that. And again, if you're number one and great in one thing, getting the organization to say, hey, there's some other shit we should be doing is hard. So just talk about what lessons you learned from both of those experiences.
Yeah. So I would say in the first one, the Netflix one, it's true. It's like everybody assumes that everything was smooth sailing, everybody was on board, and it wasn't the case. But I think, the credit goes to Reed Hastings, who was the founder of the company and CEO, who just, got the leadership team to basically evolve and really push it. So it was not, it took a few offsites, to get there, and lots of meetings. But he really did that, and it's an important lesson, because obviously if he just forced it, it would be, and if you have a resistant organization, it's hard to execute. So we got there, and then we really executed against it. But it took a while. And with YouTube, the beginning was hard because we had lots of lawsuits. People didn't want to advertise there because it was like cats and skateboards or dogs and skateboards. And, this is like a not premium content, and like who would put their ads there? So we were losing all this money because people were uploading a lot of content with all these machine costs, and people costs and everything. It was like huge amounts of money and not enough revenue, right? And lawsuits. So we had to like stabilize that first. And but I would say at YouTube, it was a really big team effort. There's so many talented people, and for instance, this had nothing to do with me, but like Shishir Mehrotra, who was heading monetization products, he came up with a skippable ad, which also seemed like, why would you have an ad that somebody can skip? Because everybody's going to skip it, so you'll never make any money. But what nobody would ever think is, well, if you target the ads correctly, they don't become a nuisance, they become information, and information is welcome. Nuisance is not. And if it's information, people are less likely to skip it. And then you should be charging more for it, because you're actually delivering useful ads to people, and that they're actually watching and not skipping and not going to the bathroom, and you're watching something on TV, etc. And it was like Shishir's insight into this and like dogged focus to deliver on that. And of course, now skippable ads are driving majority of the revenue, and others have copied the format. But it also forced the advertising agencies to create not one ad to run 2 billion times, but create massive amounts of ads, run fewer times, because now they can do that. And that allows better targeting and all of this. So it was a seismic change, but this is just one. But, with the creator economy, we decided to invest into it and jumpstart it. This was in 2011. And we decided that, the creators are incredibly talented. They just are at the very early stage of the whole ecosystem. There was not yet enough ad dollars to support it fully. So we actually spent hundreds of millions of dollars funding a lot of creators, where we would basically give them venture capital money without taking any equity for it, effectively. And they just had delivery commitments on content. And then what happened was venture capital firms, media companies, etc., started to invest too, and they fueled the whole ecosystem. And then we could stop, and the whole thing, started to move. And once that was happening, we said, well, what if we added a subscription? So we decided to work on YouTube Premium and YouTube Music. Boom, started to work on that. Then we decided, well, what about the TV ecosystem? Launch YouTube TV. So, once you have that going, you can start adding other streams which are adjacent to it. So, but it's an incredible group of people. There's no single person that can achieve like anything like that. It's always a big team effort.
So the music ecosystem is vastly different than that ecosystem. Both the UGC ecosystem and the entertainment content ecosystem. So talk about what attracted you to this role, and then also just talk about the differences and similarities.
Sure. So I would say the ecosystem, it's actually kind of the same, because, I was just talking about YouTube. one of the largest verticals on YouTube is music. So I actually learned so much about music from all of my time at YouTube. And I paid billions of dollars for content. I had to put all these rights together. It was just incredibly complex all around the world. And, music, I would say, unlike movies and TV shows, music is incredibly well aligned with its disruptors, because you will find music in the shortest of TikToks to the longest of Martin Scorsese movies and everything in between. All of that is made better with music. Martin Scorsese won music in his movies, TV shows won music in their movies, TikTokers won music in their TikToks, and YouTubers won it. So, music is incredibly fluid, and it can be inserted into any format. So actually, I have this fun saying, which is, we are the single most penetrating thing in the world, even more so than electricity. Even cavemen had music, even though they didn't have electricity. People always like music. So music will never have demand problem with users, ever, ever, ever. That's a really important thing. There are other industries that actually have demand issues. We don't, and we never will. Because of that, it's really just about how do we structure ourselves within the industry and who takes more of the pie that's there. And that can change, right? File sharing came 25 years ago and destroyed a lot of value. Things reshuffled, and some of the business reconstituted from transactional business to subscription and advertising business. It could have taken faster if everybody reacted faster, but nevertheless, eventually got there. But the demand was there. People like music. And so today, there's more ways to enjoy music than ever, in more personalized ways than ever. So we're not worried about it. So we're constantly just looking at the structure on how, what is our position? How do we deliver the best for our shareholders, for our artists, and so on and others? And, and that's what distribution platforms do, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Amazon, etc., Tencent. So it's really just about the business relationships, between us.
You've been there now about 3 years?
Yeah, over 3 years.
So I would say when I'm giving advice to people who are senior and are thinking about taking a top job at a company, the one thing I usually warn against, because you get very enthusiastic about all you can do, and if you see an opportunity to make a difference, you tend to want to embrace that. But in general, my advice is, if it's a company that's got a capital structure problem and it requires restructuring to make it right, go ahead and take that on. If it's a company that's got a strategic problem, go ahead and take that on. But if it's a company that's got both, look for something else. Now, WMG, when you got there, didn't have really a capital structure problem, but it did need to be fundamentally restructured. And it did need to have a fundamental change in strategic direction.
Yes.
So if you had been stupid enough to ask me for advice,
I would not.
I would have told you to keep looking.
Yeah.
And you would have been right, and I would have been wrong, assuming you ignored me, which you should have if I had told you that. So tell me how you pulled that off.
So you're right. Look, the reason the company needed restructuring. So it was not financial restructuring, right? But it needed, or capital structure, but it needed restructuring because it was still set up for the physical era, right? When music changed and moved to streaming, most of the media companies that I include music in, they kind of remain structured the same way, but streaming propelled it, and that is clearly not the right way to be set up for the future. So so we had to make a lot of changes, and that's extremely hard, especially in a company that hasn't done it in over a decade. So the muscle isn't there for that. So it's a difficult thing to do. So we've done a few there's only so much change also that you can pull off in any given time. So we did a series of changes, and I feel like we've pulled it off. We'll always be tinkering with things, but like we've done all the super major stuff. And and last year, as we were going through that, we decided at the same time to focus on growth, which is more like as a motivating factor for people, but it's actually working. Right? So while we were restructuring and cutting costs and making significant changes, we actually started to re-accelerate the business at the same time. So that's I'm like really proud of the team having accomplished that and pull that off, because if you pull the company at that time, everybody will tell you impossible to do. And so when people can prove themselves that they can do the impossible, it's incredible. Now, having said that, then there are still strategic issues, and namely AI is on everyone's minds, right? From investors to artists, songwriters, and everybody talks about it. So, but that's not unique to us. That's like everybody, right? So you can't really avoid it, and that is strategic. So it is something that I spend probably, like now, I haven't really counted it, but it's pretty much what I think about all the time and what I'm working on all the time. And thank God that we have a really good team, that now like the company is humming, that we did all the hard work. We cleaned up our data over the last 3 years, because, by the way, the dirty secret of any like big restructuring is that any transformations, not restructuring, but if you're transforming and doing like big system changes, that you need the software, you need clean data, and you need new processes. 2 of those 3 things have nothing to do with technology. They're dependent on the people who are there, having to do manual work to clean data and rethink the processes that they're doing so that they're more standardized. And so when you do all of that, then you can build the software to support it all and simplify. Right? But like 66% of whatever transformation you're working on is actually not software. And we've done all this hard work, and now we're like really well set up to deploy AI through the company, because if we didn't do that, it's just garbage in, garbage out. Some of it doesn't work. So but the strategic issues, they exist. We have very specific ideas on what we need to do. We're doing a lot of those things. But the trick is, when you're running a public company, you have a scorecard every single day in the share price. And that one can be swayed by a whole bunch of different things. And so we're thinking about how to deal with that in real time, how to talk about things ahead of us doing them, or do we hold them for once we do them? And, lots of that discussion.
So we'll come back to AI in a bit, but I want to stick on this strategic point, and go back to the part of the music ecosystem that is different than the entertainment ecosystem, which is that there are 3 of you, last time I checked, that are responsible for something like 3/4 of the revenue weighted what goes through the streaming services on the one hand, and on the other hand, the streaming services are responsible, for a huge amount of
70% of revenue.
70% of your revenue. So it's kind of like mutually assured destruction. And as you think about your strategic,
Here comes the United Nations experience.
Exactly, that's where that comes in. And actually, to the pie metaphor that you referenced earlier, fundamental question is: do you focus on who gets more of the pie, or do you focus on making the pie bigger? How do you think about that?
So we at Warner, we have 3 priorities that I repeat on every earnings call and every time I talk to investors. Number 1, increase our share, which means share of the pie. We have to win market share, and we have now in the last 12 months, which is great. That's how we make more money for our artists and songwriters. Number 2, increase the value of music, and this is how we're increasing the pie. And because when we increase the value of it, it doesn't guarantee, but I would say in an extremely high likelihood does, is that the distributors either increase price or launch new products in order to expand the pie. So we're focused on both. And the third one is efficiency. So share of the pie, increase the pie, increase our share, increase the value of music, which is really, enlarging the pie, and then increase efficiency. So you have to do both. It's the job in the music industry has become more complicated in today's world than it used to be, because in the closed world, in physical world with CDs and vinyls, if you found the right artist and you had hits, you got the airtime, you got the distribution in Best Buy or Tower Records, it was pretty much guaranteed success. Right? Today, it's completely different. And not only are you dealing with multiple global platforms, trillion-dollar companies all around the world, mass amounts of noise in the market, but also AI at the same time. So it just requires much more ambidextrous people, to contend with all of these issues. And as I say, you have to chew and walk gum at the same time. Otherwise, you just can't do it.
And so the good news and the bad news for you is that this is a scale business. That's the reason why there are three guys who effectively, you're not allowed to use the word dominate. You didn't use it, I used it. But there are three guys who matter here. And there are a bunch of underlying economic characteristics that make an industry a scale industry. But within that industry, you are half the size of the biggest guy, which by definition must mean that you are at a structural relative competitive disadvantage to them if you believe that scale actually matters. So what do you do? What can you do to bridge that relative scale advantage gap?
Sure. You have to be more bold. You have to be faster. You have to be more innovative. There's no way around it. It's a bit of an immigrant mentality, right? Which is like, when you come here, I always felt like I had to work harder than others in order to get the same. And it just kind of stays with me. So it's the same thing at Warner. I don't have the same size as my two other biggest competitors. Well, I got to work harder and faster in order to get the same. And that's okay. That's life. That's my life, at least. And it feels perfectly natural. And I just have to make sure that the whole company feels that way, which they do. And we're, the other thing that we can do is that a lot of these companies are very fragmented the way they operate. And we are the one that operates so much more as one. And I know this seems like, to business school students, this seems like, yeah, obviously. When you're in the market, it is not obvious at all. Like, you would be surprised how unaligned companies are and how they don't cooperate and don't function as one when they should. I come from that school. Like, this benefits us, making sure that our publishing division works well with the recorded divisions, that we're assembling both rights as much as possible, because in a world where artists are also songwriters, if they have their recorded music handled by us and let's say publishing by Universal or Sony, which has been the practice on the advice of their attorneys for many, many years, it is completely nonsensical in the internet world, because we're skill players. We have millions of copyrights to manage on multiple different platforms. We have to optimize for the algorithms. We have to make sure that the metadata is correct. It's a skill problem. What do you think we prefer? We prioritize those songs and those albums where we have both rights. So if you're astute, you want both of those in the same house. I'm sure our competition does the same. Right? It's just a simple prioritization framework. But you have an industry. I say, oh, let's divide it so that we keep them in check. It doesn't have any bearing on what's happening in today's world. Right? So these are the kind of things. So I say, the more rights we have together, the more impact we can make. And then also, when we have the rights together, we can also do deals with our distributors for new innovative products without having to get cooperation from others. So we can be faster at unlocking innovation with our partners, which we've done on multiple instances with TikTok and YouTube and others. So you just have to find your angle to be nimble.
So let's turn to AI and end on a couple of questions on that before we open it up to the throng. So in general, there's a question that companies always ask: should we buy it? Should we build it? Should we partner? You've been quite front-footed on partnering, two particularly high-profile partnerships. People are very scared of partnering in this space because they are afraid they're going to lose control. Because at the end of the day, it's all about having that IP and having that control so that you can package in a way that optimizes your overall business. So talk about the thought process, the nature of those deals, how you got comfortable with it, and where you ended up.
Yeah, so this is a good example of where we're the most aggressive in partnering. Again, so we're fast. One of the reasons is if you look at the file sharing era 25 years ago, the industry was extremely resistant, music industry. And I think, and because of that, I think it took 10 years for it to really recover, right? If you look at technological innovations, in vast majority of cases, they've benefited the media industry. Maybe there were years of dislocation for a little bit, but eventually they benefited, including file sharing, actually. I mean, file sharing really was born out of democratized distribution provided by the internet, which ultimately drove unlimited show space on the streaming platforms, which then gave the ability for us to monetize our catalogs at like an incredible rate that was never possible in the physical world. And it drove the values of catalogs up in all the companies. Right? So like nobody had thought of that at that time. And it just took way longer because the whole transition took too long because of the resistance. So I look at that and I say, okay, we should not be that resistant now. We should actually be extremely fast. And by partnering, we actually do get control. We don't lose control. We gain control. When you don't partner, you don't have control. So and again, control is a little bit strong word. It's more that we get to co-author the rules of the road for the future of music. Now we're at the table with our partners and who appreciate the partnerships, who appreciate the insight. So that's, to me, it's important to be in the driver's seat. That's where we are. The other thing that, in my opinion, is very important is to actually legitimize and support the partners who are willing to license. Because in today's world, there could be a whole bunch of other people around the world who will decide to build technology and they will not license. So it's important to actually support those who are having traction with users, because who cares about what loopholes there are as long as vast majority of users are with the ones who've licensed from us. Right? So sort of helping to kingmake those who are on the right path and they're dealing with us and license from us in the eye and are winning with users is the right way to go. Is everything perfect and 100%? No. But waiting, in my opinion, is a terrible, terrible idea. You do not get to co-author anything. Everything gets bigger outside of you. Then you're on your back foot trying to deal with things versus on your front foot. And three, it's more interesting for us to shape things rather than watch things happen to the industry. We're making things happen. We're like in the arena fighting versus, in the bleachers watching and commenting on it. So, that's where we are, and we're open for business. We're partnering. We're not easy, but we're constructive. And one of the benefits that a lot of our partners have with us is I come from the other side. I was on the distribution side. I know what they're thinking, everything. I've lived it multiple times. So bridging the gap is easier than anywhere else, right? Like we can make things happen. And so, yeah, to me, it's an exciting time to be part of it. And look, ultimately, we're doing it on behalf of our artists and songwriters who sign with us, who have their copyrights with us, their identity, and it's a great cause to protect it, and at the same time build the pie, and make a bigger pie.
So one place where you don't have control is your share price and the impact of AI on entire industries, often in a kind of undifferentiated way based on something somebody wrote, an announcement that some LLM made. People have a number of high-level insights that are generally agreed to, that if you have proprietary content and data, you should be an AI winner. If you're a mere aggregator, you're an AI loser. But then it all goes out the window when somebody misses their revenue by half a point and they lose half of their value in one day. So just give me your high-level perspective on, particularly given what your perspective is on file sharing. Long term, is AI like file sharing? Is it something that is going to increase the value of catalog? And also, specifically, one thing we haven't talked about that people are relentlessly talking about is AI generated music, which is an increasing portion of what people are listening to.
Yep. So, so we firmly believe that AI will actually increase the value of music, and I respect that may feel like a contrarian theory, but so was Netflix and so was YouTube. And so I'm used to living through contrarian theories, and I love proving people wrong and creating a lot of value in the process of it. That's what's interesting about this job. The best way to think about it is this: when you have, clearly AI music is here. There's a whole bunch of different models, some better than others, but like users are doing it. Today, it's mostly happening, and it's, by the way, it's the total wild, wild west, right? It's like some people train on our content, some people didn't. Some people are here, some people in China, some like all over the place, right? So just think about it's total wild, wild west and east, and there are really two types of outputs with music. One, which we call generic, which is it doesn't resemble any of our artists, any of our songs, nothing. It's just like net new. Even though it was created by a model that was trained on our content. And then there's outputs which we call derivative, which are some variations or with like massive inspiration from either our songs or using our artist voices with whole net new lyrics, etc. So it's either implicating intellectual property or it's impacting name, image, likeness, and voice of the artist. So derivative and generic. Those are the two different types of outputs. And what we care about is that we're financially participating in both, that they're subject to artists and songwriters opt-ins, when it's using their name, image, likeness, and voice. And because once you let identity be stolen for art, it can be stolen for anything. And we live in a world where there's no truth whatsoever anymore, right? So it becomes much more existential to the whole world than we just happen to be at the tip of the spear because artists are sort of world famous personalities. So you have these two outputs. We have to make sure that we license our content for the models to be trained. Through that we're cutting into the outputs with the right rev share. So these are not fixed fees. There's some people who would write up that we would do training for fixed fees. That will never happen. It's a nonsensical statement. We're focused on, the outputs forever. What happens with those? And we think that in the derivative area, it will actually drive a lot more casual creators in, because if you're in the generic one, it takes like more creativity to come up with something, even though you're using the AI tools. Derivative one is like, make it sound like Bruno Mars, make it sound like Beyonce, or have these lyrics and with the voice of these two guys, right? And so it's a bit of a cheat. It's like trends on TikTok and things like that. So I think it's going to get embraced by huge amounts of people. This one doesn't function yet. It's a whole net new opportunity to unlock, and we already have agreements for those. And so the best way to think about it is that today we get paid from listening, Spotify and YouTube, etc. So we get paid from listening. Now, let's say from Suno and others, and there'll be more, we'll get paid from creation. And obviously, when I say we, I mean us and artists and songwriters. And so it's expanding the pie, which is really, really important. And but it's expanding it in ways that it's giving people something fun and interesting to do that wasn't possible to do before. And that's kind of cool, because the opportunities from there are kind of endless. And so we view it as an opportunity. Now you can take the other view that it dilutes the content, it dilutes the content pool, etc. But we're focusing on how do we increase the ARPU through additional tiers for creation. If we participate in rev share in both the generic and derivative, then if it's diluting, it's okay because we're participating. So all of these sort of negative views don't go all the way thinking through the moves that we're making. And I always say, and this was true at Netflix, was true at YouTube, and it's true here, is that everybody, the smartest people, they know 90% of everything. But the super, super smart and the real winners, they figure out the last 10%. The last 10% is where all the value, where the winners are made, where all the value is created. And so generally, when I read things, it's the 90%. That's it. That's like whatever reports I read, that's the 90%, no matter how much work they do. Because when you're not in it, you're not living it, you're not working through details, there's no way that you know the last 10%. And so that's what I'm focused on, that we're the best at the last 10%. And if we nail that, then it goes the right way.
All right. Well, let's open it up to you all. You have the luck of being near a microphone, so you'll be number one.
Hi, thank you so much for doing this session. My name is Priyanka. I'm a first year student at CBS. My question is that having worked both at Netflix and YouTube, who do you feel would be creating more value in the long term? Would it be platforms which aggregate user attention, or the ones who own the IP?
So today, if you look at the value of Spotify, let's say relative to ours and Universal, they eclipse us. So today, it's the answer is on the distribution side. In the past, it was the opposite, and today, it's on the distribution side. We're working very hard to, at a minimum, equalize that, if not change it. And the reason that I think of AI as the lever to do that is because I think in the world of AI, we move on from the market share world, which is where we're at today. There's a fixed pool of revenue from subscriptions that we all compete with inside, all the music suppliers, irrespective of quality and irrespective of the user intent what they're subscribing for. So I have this saying that, Ed Sheeran or raindrops on the roof are valued the same way. That is really how streaming works. And so it doesn't have any kind of bar for quality. But AI, through attribution, does. So I think in the world that I'm describing, that we're moving into, is the contribution of high quality, whether it's artists or songs, to the models and to the outputs, in my opinion, will be greater. So that is our chance to rebalance what today we view as out of balance in this question.
And do you see a world, so in the pure video content world, Netflix, after saying that they don't want to be in the content business or content creation business, realized that they needed to. And conversely, the folks in the content business decided they needed to be in the distribution platform business as well. There's no particular evidence that Spotify has any interest in being other than essentially a distributor. And there's no particular evidence that any of you three are interested in building your own distribution pipe. Do you think that might change?
I think music's different from video because imagine you're an artist, and so imagine that Spotify bought a record label. When an artist is releasing their song, they don't want to be just on Spotify. They want to be ubiquitous. It's different with movies and TV shows. They're happy to be just on that one platform because they get paid their fee for it, and that's it. So I think music is different. And then the second thing is the bias that the platform would be accused of by other artists. Right? You say, oh, even though it may not be true, they'll be like, well, they're probably favoring the ones that they own, right? And from the label that they own versus us. So we're going to optimize more on the other platforms. So I've thought about this a lot when I was at YouTube, actually, and I thought about it a lot here at Warner. And it's just a different industry. This one is ubiquitous versus exclusive.
Okay, right over there.
Thanks a lot for all your insights today. I have a question more on the AI side of things, continuing that conversation. We've spoke about generative media and music's role in that. I was also interested to understand how you think about other parts. Like, for example, UMG did a partnership with NVIDIA for music discovery and also AI infrastructure to help artists. So I wanted to hear your thoughts about other facets, how you're thinking about it. Do you think that will meaningfully add value to the ecosystem?
I just want to make sure I get the question correctly. It's how do we view the role of partnerships in defining ecosystem?
More on AI being used to improve search, improve discovery, or the infrastructure itself to help artists make more music.
So actually, I think that at Netflix and Amazon and YouTube, effectively, what now is called AI has been in flight for 20 years. Right? Recommendations on Amazon and Netflix. I remember at Netflix in the year 2000, we were 70% search, 30% recommendations, and Reed was like, it should be the opposite. Right? Let's figure out how we drive demand. And so Netflix focused on it starting year 2000. Same thing with Amazon, and it's like you purchase this, you may like this, right? So that's effectively machine learning. Machine learning is AI. So that's been in flight. So discovery has been AI-fied for a long time. There is obviously much more that can be done, but all the companies, they've been working on it, and they will continue to. So I think it's really the bigger change that's coming is on the creation side, right? With all kinds of tools which are happening, and look, we hold songwriter camps, which is it's basically gatherings of songwriters who like to get together for a week, and they're creating songs. But we're also sharing what kind of tools that we're using and they're using and all of it. And what always comes out of it is just a bunch of amazing music. Then eventually gets attached with different singers and cut, and lots of hits happen out of it. It's actually interesting how this practice is so revered by songwriters and works, right? But today we're adding to it. Okay, what do you do? What do you do with AI? What kind of AI tools you use and for what? And there are so many particular narrow use cases that they use, because not everybody says, I'm just gonna ask it to create it for me, right? It's not that's not how they use it. So anyway, I think on the creation side, more tools are coming. And that's exciting. It's like many tools have popped up before in the past that were more analog. Now they're hyper digital and a lot smarter. And again, it's all about how do we set the rules of the road, and we want to be at the seat of defining that, and that's where we are.
All right. How about that right in the middle? To make you work, I think.
Hi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm Lucy. I'm a master's student here at CBS. So you've led Warner Music through a period of major transformations in the industry. So I can imagine the many trade-offs that needed to be made at the leadership level. So what has been the strategic decision you've made as the CEO?
Hardest strategic decision or related to restructuring? You mean in general, hardest strategic decision,
Yes.
or specifically related to restructuring?
In general.
Oh, in general. I think I'll give you two. One, which was us jumping in on the Suno deal, which we did in November, because Suno obviously we were suing them for copyright infringement, and so for us the decision was: is it better for us to figure out how we bring them onto the license ground and make sure, because they're having a lot of traction with the users, and are they willing to do that? And can we do it in a way that we can be very satisfied with commercially, and that it can uphold our principles? Or do we just stay at it and continue to sue? And so as you can imagine, in many companies, so like my two other large competitors, they haven't done that yet. As you can imagine, it's a difficult decision because you're the smaller of the three, and you make the move. So there was a lot of sleepless nights over that. And the other one was just lots of senior management changes inside the company, because with that you lose a lot of compound knowledge about the company, the artists, processes, etc. But you still somehow arrive at the decision that you have to make the change. So you're putting the company through serious disruption, and you're hoping that it is for the better. But do you really know that, right? And so those were all things that I wrestled with quite a lot. And time will show whether they were correct.
Great. One last question with very high hand up there.
Thank you for taking my question. My name is Juliana Cardona. I am a second year. I would like to learn more about this attribution revenue model. Have you accounted for second degree attribution? So for instance, if I were to create a song based on a Suno song, would you get paid per listener, or is it a one-time fee?
Yeah, so what you're describing is basically synthetic content, right? Like attribution from synthetic content, and I don't think things are as far as that yet overall in the industry. Remember, I described the wild west and east that's happening today. Companies are training on all kinds of data. We're working on measurement technologies that can be like applied and accepted almost universally, which would include this, but we're not fully there yet across the board. But if you have the right commercial relationships, it kind of doesn't matter, because you're cutting in the near term the right way, and over time you improve the attribution and you improve your participation based on accurate data. So it's a mix of, one of the things that you learn in a job like this is that, there are certain tools which are crude, and then there are certain tools which are precise. Obviously, you use precise tools as much as you can, but sometimes they're not available. So you got to use the crude ones. then you're going to work on development of the precise ones, at the same time. And so it's like, it's constant practical decisions of moving the ball forward, defining the guardrails for the industry, making sure people on both sides feel good about it, and that we're growing the pie. And nothing's ever perfect. But, you try to improve it so you get as close to it as possible. But it's an excellent question. Thank you.
So speaking of feeling good about it, my instinct is that everybody in this room feels good that this overall ecosystem has a leader like you in it, because it is transforming, and how it ends up will define how big the pie is that we all benefit from. And we are thrilled that we benefited from you coming here today and your generosity.
Thanks
Thanks
you.
a lot.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.